Hello everybody, this is part 2 of my interview with Melody Among. You may have seen part 1 that was approximately 1 year ago actually, in August of 2011. We are now in August of 2012. Last time we interviewed her, about a year ago, she had passed a 172 word per minute literary at 1 minute, and she had been in school 5 months. Now we're going to talk about where she is today and how she got here. So, Melody, 1 year later, you've passed out of all of your required speed classes, and in your optional speed class, you've passed 3 200 literaries, 4 250 word a minute testimonies. You've now moved on to speed 7, which is optional, which is 280 words a minute Q&A, and you almost passed one of those, I understand. To reiterate your history at this school, your first day was March 10th, 2011. You only knew the steno alphabet and a few words at that time when you arrived. 5 months later, you passed the 172 literary, and we interviewed you. I think what people are most interested in now, and the purpose of this interview, is how did you practice? What did you do from your first day when you got here until today to get where you are? Many people are tempted to think you did it all by natural talent, fast fingers. How did you do it?
I just followed your formula to practice 3 times a day. And the important part, I think, is to set good habits. Because if you have good habits, it kind of takes care of itself. You know, the hardest part is planting the garden. But once you have the garden all set up and the garden all tilled, then it becomes a habit. All you have to do is water it every day. And if you water it every day, it becomes natural, kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't forget it, you know. So it's just a matter of setting really good habits. You have to set goals too. I mean, boundaries, not rigid boundaries. I don't like those because that breeds impatience and nervousness, and that doesn't help with test nerves. But I think that you need to set daily goals, not long-term goals, but mainly daily goals, because what you do today is going to get you to where you want to be eventually. So, for instance, when I wake up in the morning, I know in my head that I want to do 3 practices a day. I mean, that's what I do every day. So I know that the first practice cannot be started any later than 12 o'clock. So sometimes I'll start earlier than that. Sometimes I'll drag it on. But as soon as 12 hits, I know I need to get it on, or else it's going to snowball and I'm going to miss all the other practices. And the second practice, I set a boundary again. Has to be started at 4 o'clock. Or, you know, or sooner, you know, depending. So it's kind of a fluid goal, you know what I mean? But you gotta have boundaries, or else it just kind of life gets in the way, as people say. But you can't let life get in the way, you know. And I've noticed that anything past 9 o'clock, I get really tired and fatigued. So my last practice is finally anytime 9 or sooner than that. I make it happen, or else it, you know, it gets out of control.
Correct. And the reason that we practice at least 3 times a day is because our brain will forget if you go 8, 10, 12 hours of not practicing, especially at high speed. Is that how you look at it?
And you want to make it natural. I mean, my dad always said, what you do under pressure is whatever comes naturally. So when you do high speed, you want to make 100% feel natural, so that when you're under pressure, you know, you can't give 75%, because when you're in the test mode and you're under so much pressure, you're going to do whatever comes naturally. And if you've been lenient on yourself all that time, that's what's going to come when you're under pressure, you know, and then you're not going to do as good as you want to do. So it's a matter of setting good habits, and like you said, reminding your brain, this is where I need to be. This is where I need to be. No, not over there. This is where I need to be, you know.
Right. In my school and in the Magnum Steno Club, I emphasize that you need to write short, which means practicing briefs regularly, and practice at high speeds regularly. Now, did you do that from the beginning?
I would say I spent that 4-month chunk working on your book, and so during that time I did a lot of hours on working on writing short, but I would say after that I wasn't extremely consistent. I mean, ideally I should have practiced briefs every day, but my only requirement was that I practice high speed, and maybe every other day or every other 2 days I would make 30 minutes aside for briefs. But like I said, in those first 4 months, I put in so much time into writing short. So maybe if I had just put in 30 minutes of every day, it would have equaled what I did in that first 4 months. You know what I mean?
Right. Now, I've seen a notebook, or more than one notebook, that you've prepared, and you write very small in pencil, and you have lists and lists and lists of briefs that you're working on. Is that what you did during the 9 months of theory class?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the best way to memorize briefs, and I found over time that the best way is to study them in families, to study them in translated count according to your dictionary or my dictionary, whatever, just whatever's most translated, and it's in 2 strokes. So families, that, and just trying to find better methods so that it would stick. In personalizing, I did a lot of personalizing. People say, how can you memorize so many briefs? Well, I mean, not everything is taken up on the keyboard. You can invent your own. You can make it work for you. You know what I mean? Success doesn't happen. You got to make it happen. You can make it work for you.
Right. Now, I remember that when you passed your first 200 word a minute Q&A, you wrote only 75 strokes for every 100 words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the shortest I've ever written for a Q&A, is 75. And to do so, your fingers were only going about 2.5 or 2 strokes a second? I can't remember. I'm thinking 2.5. It might have been 2.5. So your fingers were slow, weren't they, for 200 words a minute? And so if somebody thinks that Melody Among got through school because she's one of those whizzes with fast fingers, would they be correct?
No, the things that helped me was, I think the 2 things is personality and life circumstances. My personality is I had slower fingers, so I needed to counter that with a shorter theory, you know what I mean? And I wanted to give myself the best chance at succeeding because I knew how hard it was. I thought, well, I don't want to make it any harder than it's already going to be, So, personality as in work ethic, setting habits, being consistent with your things. So it's a balance, you know what I mean? I think that the 3 things that make up really good students are people that work hard and people that are passionate, and then there's a small percentage for talent. But you can make up for some lack of talent with your theory. You know what I mean? You don't have to have an immense amount of talent like some theories require you. I don't see why you would ever come back for another stroke. You know what I mean? In all the endings. I can understand if they want to do syllable, syllable, syllable. That's their prerogative. But there's no excuse for why you should come back for all the endings in another stroke. I mean, people say, well, people that write out longer, they've beaten Mark in the speed contest. But I want to know of anybody that comes back for their endings that's beaten you ever. You know what I mean? I want to know. I asked a teacher once, and she was a court reporter, and I said, she was trying to teach us to come back for all the endings, and I said, do you do that on your job? Can you honestly tell me that if they said cats and dogs, you would write that, in separate strokes? And she kept on beating around the bush and going around. And I feel like, why would you teach somebody something that you wouldn't do yourself? That's not, you should not. That's not a leader. You try to look out for the best for the student, and that's why I like your theory. Is it incorporates all the endings, which is the way it should be. It should be that way.
Yes. We did a calculation one time of how fast you were gaining speed. Or you did the calculation first, I think, and it came up about just under 15 words a minute you were gaining per month.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so that's about every 2 days you gain 1 word per minute.
Yeah.
So if you were in, let's say, 175, for you to get 190 took you about a month. Is that correct?
Yeah, you notice it about in 2-month increments. I would notice when it would take about 2 months per speed around. The higher ones, of course, maybe took 3. But then, so a month, 7 words a minute, you're not going to notice a huge difference. But when 15 words per minute comes, I would notice a big, huge jump every 2 months. Every 2 months, I would notice, wow, look how far back I came. And that's why I like your theory. Because it allows you to be really efficient so that you can look back 2 months and say, wow, I've made a lot of progress. Whereas in other theories, you're going to put in so many hours to look back 2 months and say, wow, I've really come far. You know what I mean? It's more discouraging. And you got to have the encouragement feeds the fire of passion. You know what I mean? And it kind of dies down as you get more discouraged, So you got to, that's why I like your theory.
Excellent. I learned my theory at the American Institute of Business back in 1981, and it was a short theory, and I haven't changed anything in it. I've only added new things, and I've learned a lot of things from other court reporters, and when I learn from them, I add on to it and I invent things. And Now that you've gotten into my theory, have you seen what I've done and then gone beyond it and invented things?
Yeah. And that's why I don't like it when people say, it's Mark's theory and that's just for Mark, because you built upon so many different principles and you just combine it into one. When my dad was a tinter, he said what he would do to learn the best is, he said he didn't just copy one person. What he would do is he would grab the best of every guy. He would learn the best of every other guy, so he'd combine it into one thing and try to be the best that he could be. And that's all you did, you know what I mean? You combined all the things you knew with plenty of other court reporters. So it's the most efficient and best that you could possibly come up with, and you're still improving upon it. I mean, the work is never done, but that's, so it's universal. It should help everybody. Everybody can benefit from it.
Right. Some students feel that if they just come to school and practice during school, that should be enough for them to graduate. What do you think about that?
Most of the progress that I made was outside of school, I would definitely have to say. And yeah, no, I don't. Some people also take broadcast jobs, or while they're in school, because it's tempting and stuff like that, and that really slows people down, because I mean you get so tired, and it's easy to write it off as just saying, well, that's my STEM practice, But you have to have high speed, because like you were saying, you have to remind yourself, this is where I need to be, this is where I need to be, and for instance, I used to sit and rush the ball, and as soon as it started getting a little bit where it wasn't challenging to me anymore, then I decided, I need to do other forms of practice. So you need to determine, some people practice the TV, which there's court reporters that are against it and court reporters are for that method, but you have to understand that that's only going to be really good practice if you're not dropping every other word. I mean, you can't be way far off, from the speed, and it's got to be challenging enough, but there's only a small window of time before that runs out, and it's not challenging or you're dropping too much, so there's only a small amount of people, that can benefit from certain things like radio, and it's better just to have high speed, like in the Magnum Center Club, my real-time coach, where you can control it, you can speed it up, slow it down, because you're always progressing, you can't just keep, CNN News and just keep on watching that, because they're talking around the same pace all the time, you got to be able to speed it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Melody, some schools, some teachers feel that you should never leave out any punctuation, never leave out any Q&A symbols, that you've got to constantly strive for perfection in all of your practice. What do you say to that?
I do think that it has its place. I mean, but we have a lot of control speeds in school where you can practice that. You know what I mean? In school, they're not zooming for most schools. I mean, this may be one of the few schools that do that all the time, So I do feel like you can practice all those things in school, and then you can maybe do 5 minutes at night of your control speed and just get all of the punctuation, get all the symbols in, you know what I mean? But I definitely don't think it's the main focus. I mean, you'll meet court reporters and they'll say, I can't even imagine leaving out a symbol. They'll tell you that. So, I mean, if it's so second nature to them, I mean, it should be that easy. When you get into there, that's all you're doing. They're not talking 5 minutes of rapid boom, 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 boom that's killing you. So you can get those symbols in. It'll be easy and it'll become so second nature to you. That's not what you need to focus on mainly in school, where you're dropping words because of symbols. I mean, one day it's going to be so second nature to you, you're not even going to have to work at it,
Mm-hmm. So you have passed many of your tests by leaving out punctuation and leaving out sometimes Q&A symbols, correct? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it costs you because you'll have your punctuation wrong, correct? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it costs you because you had your Q&A symbols in the wrong spot, correct? Mm-hmm. Are you better now that you've passed several 250s and you're working at 280? Are you better now at putting in the symbols?
Oh, definitely. In fact, I was on an internship recently, and I can't even think, there was maybe 3 of the whole day that I left out, the going back and forth, because it's not like a test where it's coming at you so rapidly. And by the end of the day, I was doing 300, 330, 340 that night. I had to still practice, and I was getting Q&A symbols. It just worked in. So that's what I'm telling you. Court reporters tell you it's so natural. I can't even imagine doing it. So why do we focus so much? Because one day it's going to be so easy. I mean, it's not something you have to work on intensely. I'm not saying neglect it completely. Like I said, work on it in school. Working at night, once a night, get them all in. But it should not be the main focus. I know some people that say, I cannot even drop a Q&A without, they'd rather drop words. That's not good, you know what I mean?
Right.
You want to have a balance.
Right. Well, you started in March of 2011, and by May of 2012, a year and 2 months, you had passed out of your last 225s. You could have left school then, in May, a few months back, but you're still here. you have a couple weeks left to graduate. Why did you want to graduate by finishing your last academic?
I it was something for my dad. You know, my dad really wanted me to graduate, and also I really wanted to learn the court reporting procedures. And the last thing is I really wanted to build my speed. I mean, my logic is when you get out there, you have less incentive and less time to shorten your writing and to work on speed. You know what I mean? There's just less of everything. I mean, when I'm interning, I'm so fatigued by the end of the day. The last thing I want to do is practice. Not that I don't do it, but you know what I mean? It's so much harder. So
But you do practice when you come back from
yes,
interning.
yes, but I mean, it's so much harder, you know what I mean, when you put yourself out there. You know, a lot of people are in a rush to make money, but then it slows you down on your goal towards excellence, and I want to get as excellent as possible, as close to the 280 as possible, before I throw myself out there, you know.
Right. Now, so a lot of people watching are just amazed at your accomplishments and how you're still in school and you've passed 250s and that you're still here. You're going to have graduated from the school in 1 year and 5 months. That's not even a year and a half. It's less than a year and a half. You will have completely graduated and not only passed 225 but 250. And as I understand it, in May you took the RPR and you passed the first two legs of it and did not pass the Q&A. But you're going to take the Q&A August 25th, just a couple weeks from now, correct? Yeah. And you feel very confident about that because it's at 225 and you've passed 4 250s and you almost passed a 280, so you feel good about it.
Well, someone was asking me, how do you counter test nerves? You know, someone was asking me that just recently. And I said, well, you know, there's different methods, you know, focus on breathing deep, you know, say a little prayer, eat peanut butter. I mean, people have so many different methods. Focus on a diet. I mean, admittedly, all those things work, you know, being patient, not having unrealistic or rigid goals. You know, all those things, there's keeping things in perspective. But the main way to counter nerves is to prepare. I mean, practice, practice, practice. There's no substitute for that. The more prepared I am, the less nervous I'm going to be. That just stands to reason, you know. So if people want to know, you know, how do you get over the nerves? I mean, you never really get over every nerve, but I mean, you can set yourself up for the best way by practicing a lot, you know, writing as short as you can. You can set yourself up to, you know, succeed.
Are you saying the best preparation is to be well prepared before you get there?
Yeah, that's the best way to counter nerves. I mean, that's really the only way. I mean, I'll be so much less nervous than any time ever in the RPR. You know what I mean? Because I'm just more prepared. Not because I have better methods. Not because I'm eating peanut butter or anything. You know, I'm just better prepared, and that's the best. That's the best method.
Right. So you've passed a bunch of 250s, and you're a very fast writer right now. Could you go out tomorrow, if you wanted to, and take a deposition and provide beautiful real time to them?
Yeah, they don't talk very fast. Depending. I mean, I went and interned, and can't recall much times they talk faster than 260, so I didn't really have a hard time writing it cleanly. Of course, in the first hour, you're getting used to all the new terms and everything like that, and then as soon as you get all those plugged in, it's not too difficult to write it cleanly, you know.
Right. Do you think that it is important in schools, like some schools are teaching, to train you at real time and to spend hours perfecting your real time while you're in school?
Well, I mean, the best way to get closer to real time is to just write short. I mean, if you really cared about a student writing real time, you would teach them a shorter theory. Granted, it's harder to learn and it's harder to teach, but my writing at 225, even when I didn't pass 250s, was a lot cleaner than someone in Stan Ed writing at 225. That just wasn't because I was more talented, it was because I had more time to form each stroke. And I was writing so short that everything was just connecting. Everything was coming out nicely. And whereas someone in Stan Ed, they can pass, you know, another girl I knew that was at 225, I saw her writing, and even though it was messy, she could put it together and pass that baby at 95%. But it was really messy on the screen because she's having such a hard time trying to get every syllable correct, accurate. You know, it's so much harder. It's so much harder when you're trying to get individual syllables, getting them correct. And definitely, real time is not the focus in school. I mean, that's eventual. One day I can understand why some people really emphasize real time because it is the savior of our profession. You know what I mean? But it's not for students. I mean, that's going to hold more students back than anything else if all they're doing is focusing on real time, you know.
Is it fair to say that if you write very short and work hard at high speeds to get your fingers fast, that real time will fall into place 30, 40 words a minute below your top speed?
Yeah, easily. Because when I was writing at, 160, 180, around there at 140, I was writing cleanly. I mean, it's coming up perfect. In fact, the 180 literary that I took in the RPR, I think it was one error off from being 99%. One error off from being 99%. And when I finished it, there was no doubt in my mind that I passed it. I went through the thing, and it was almost real-time perfect. So I had to put a few punctuation here and there, connect one or two words, and that was it. I mean, because that's the benefit of writing fast. I mean, because it sounds so slow, you have so much time to make that perfect stroke. You know what I mean? People think, well, how are you going to make that stroke? It's so more complicated than if I just did syllable, syllable, syllable. But you have so much time because it's just, you're doing so much high speed that it just sounds so slow. You can make it precise, you know.
Right. So when you graduate, do you want to be an official or a freelancer or go into captioning or what?
Definitely freelance until I get all my certs, you know, RMR, CRR, and then I'll go into captioning, you know, little cottage by the sea. Yeah.
So you do want to eventually be a captioner?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's for me. I never really got into it for the money. I always like the flexibility of being able to caption, you know.
One time you mentioned about some students who have dropped out of this school, for example. We've had a few drop out, and it's normal because they realize they can't do it. And you mentioned something about how you can eat, drink, and talk steno all day long. And did you notice a difference between the students who make it or can make it and those who don't make it with how much they love steno and how much they talk about it?
Oh yes, definitely. And if you talk about it a lot, you're going to surround yourself with like-minded people, and that's always a recipe for good things. I mean, what you dwell on, what you think about the most, you eventually become that. You know what I mean? If I read a lot about minimalism all the time, all of a sudden I'm decluttering. You know what I mean? That's why it says whatever is good, whatever's right, think on these things, because that's what you become eventually.
From the Bible.
Yeah, that's what you become. So I've always stand to reason that a good student is composed of three things, and you have to have three things, and there are many students who are lacking one or two things. And you have to have good work ethic, and I'm not saying you've had to have prior experience with good work ethic, just that when you come to court, you need to know that you need to be practicing every day. So good work ethic, you know, you gotta have talent, a certain amount of talent. You know what I mean? If you were really bad at English in school, or you know, there's got to be some certain degree of talent. And then there's got to be passion. I mean, without passion, that funds everything. I mean, that's the fire that keeps you moving. Even the hard times, you're failing tests left and right, has to be a passion, either passion for money or passion for steno. There's got to be a passion for something. You know what I mean? There's got to be those three things. There has to be three things to make a good student.
Would you say that you've been able to mentor some of the students who are here, who are at lower speeds?
Yeah, there's one girl, I call her my brainchild. She at first I would tell her practice 3 times a day. I would tell everybody in my school that, and some of them would just shrug it off, you know, I got vacations and I have kids and I have so many other things to do, which I understand. And I would tell them, no, you know, the number one key is to practice 3 times a day. I mean, that's even more important than writing short. You have to practice 3 times a day, you know. And no one really listened to me. And finally, this one girl said, "You know what? I'm just gonna give it a try." She said that. I'm just gonna try it out. She tried it out, and she's been passing tests. She's been getting half the errors she can get. She's been flying through speeds. And that's why I'm saying you can say that everyone progresses at their own rate, but you can't say that until you try everything. You know what I mean? Just try what some people are saying. Just try it out. You know, believe in it. See if it's going to work for you. You know what I mean? If you are writing short and you're practicing 3 times a day, every single day, you know, the speeds will just fall down. That's just a natural. Just a natural product of working hard. You know what I mean? In both ways, it's countering it 2 ways. A 2-way attack. You know what I mean? That's what you want. You want to make fast progress because that gets the fire burning even more. I can do this, you know.
Can the 3 times a day be all 3 times in the morning or all 3 times in the afternoon?
No, that's why I set the limit on, you know, I got to be at 12, I got to be at 4, I got to be at 9, because those are the limits, because if I don't set those limits, all of a sudden it starts crossing over into each other, and then all of a sudden I'm doing all 3 at night, and that's not good. I mean, you want to constantly remind your brain is that, you know, you may as well just sit there for 2 hours at a time, which is not as good, you know. It's just not as good.
I've been saying for years that I would rather have someone practice 20 minutes a day, morning, noon, and night, than 3 hours in the morning and never again the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're following, isn't it?
Yes.
Melody, through Facebook and email and forums and meeting people, you've met several students, many students who have taken 4, 5, 6 years to get out of school. Did you notice anything that those students had in common with their practice regimen?
They firstly, Steno wasn't always a priority for all of them, which is fine. I mean, we all have different priorities in life. But I noticed that a lot of them, they can't tell you once they've passed 4 years that they have been practicing every day. And the thing I like about your theory is that it encourages you to practice every day, because every time I look back 2 months later, I see progress. Like that one girl, Catherine, I was talking about, you know, she finally did that 3 times a day that I've been telling her to do, and she's been flying out of tests left and right because she writes short and she writes fast, you know, and so that now she's not going to skip a day. That's her incentive. I need to make it happen because she sees so much instantaneous progress, and I know for the longer theories it's harder, you know, because you don't see as much incentive. You have to put in more time to get someone who's writing shorter, you know, to that level. But it's so important. I mean, there's going to be days, there's going to be hard days. There's going to be days you're traveling. There's going to be days where, you know, there's no internet in your hotel room. You know, there's going to be days where you have a migraine. There's going to be days that your kids are acting, you know, out of control. You have to prepare for these things because these things are life, but you just have to prepare for that. You know, that there's going to be days like you have to set the goals 3, 3, 3, no matter what, as best as you can. You know what I mean? I'm not saying if you are in so much pain to do that, but I mean, as best as you can, you know, just, it's very important not to skip a single day. I mean, even every little bit, even if you could just put in 10 minutes, that counts for something, you know.
Well, I guess that sums up our interview. I want to thank you for all your hard work and your inspiration to me and many other people for what you've done, Melody. I think that you have no idea how many people that you're going to inspire with these 2 interviews and how hard you worked. You set a high bar.
Thank you, Mark.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.